Welcome to Joshua Shultz's podcast. We'll be covering entertainment, movies, photography, TV shows, and health. So why did I start a podcast? For me, I've been in the entertainment industry for a long time, and I've run into quite a bit of misconceptions about what happens in the industry and how things run. And, over my years, I've had the privilege sometimes of training new up-and-coming artists. And it surprises me that the lack of information there is out there to help artists. When I first got into art, I assumed, you put all your attention on art, making great art, making high-quality art, and, the rest goes from there. But the reality is, it's a business. And your art is your product, your commodity. But there's quite a lot of things that go into making it as an artist in the entertainment industry, whether you are an actor, a director, a photographer, a model. There are things that you have to put into place to get your basics in, build your portfolio, marketing. And then once you start actually having an impact and you start receiving your first pushback or attacks, how do you survive that? So I was talking to a friend of mine who is an actress who happens to be one of my favorite actresses. And we were talking about the industry and surviving. And, we were sharing these inside stories of things that we'd experienced. And it was actually her idea to have a podcast, to have a platform in which we can sort of share these inside stories and hopefully also share some experience and knowledge so that hopefully we can help other artists make it as artists. And so then I looked at what a podcast is and I realized that'd be so exciting. I mean, instead of having to share knowledge one-on-one with somebody, how great would it be if I can share knowledge with more than one person at a time and hopefully help people make it as artists? The reason why I also wanted to bring up health is, to me, the healthier I got and the more I really honed in on my food and sleep and things like this, the more happiness I was able to experience and the better artist I became. I had this balance of really investing in my physical and mental health, then of course impact the rest of my life. So a little bit about me. I started out in 2011. I was working in the business world and I wasn't happy. My whole life I was always in love with art. And so I decided that I was going to take a risk and go out there and try to become an artist. And quit my job, went from living comfortably to having nothing, having to start over. And I met an amazing director and I convinced him to let me produce a music video for him. And so my first project was producing this music video for a guy named Brandon Boyd from Incubus. And then after that, I was asked by a friend of mine named Tyler Hines to produce a short film that he was going to direct called Firefly. And then shortly after that, the director who did the Brandon Boyd music video had lost a camera operator for a documentary that he was making with a band called Band of Horses up in Big Sur, California, and asked if I'd come along. And so I did, and I was lucky to be a part of this documentary, and we got to work with Band of Horses and Al Jardine from the Beach Boys in the Beach Boys studio. Sort of a trial by fire. I had to go in there, learn how to use the camera within 5 minutes, and then do a good job. That was the pressure. There was no margin for error. And then after the trip, it was weird. It was I discovered something that I realized I was obsessed with, which was photography. It was, oh my God, I could take all of these things inside my head and make them in the physical universe with photography. And so to me, I felt like I won the lottery. I had so much clarity in life. And I went back to Los Angeles and I photographed a model. And that ended up taking off on Facebook. This was back before Instagram was a thing. And from that, I started booking photo shoots. And a actress who was starring on a CW show at the time had seen my work and asked me to photograph her. And she loved those photographs so much that she, sent it to her friends. And then I started shooting more people. And, next thing I knew, a year later, I was being published in Rolling Stone, Billboard. I don't remember. I don't know. I've been published in places. This was back when magazines were still relevant. Actually, I remember the first big publication I had was Rolling Stone had a big photo of mine of Imagine Dragons. And then on the newsstand next to Rolling Stone was a special Us Weekly for the TV show Pretty Little Liars. And then I had a big photo of one of the stars of Pretty Little Liars. And that was cool because that was like newsstands all over the United States. And so friends of mine were grabbing it and, seeing my name in these magazines. And anyway, from there, I started photographing a bunch of bands and album covers and merchandise and, magazine press, actors. And eventually that turned into directing music videos and fashion films and commercials. I had so much fun with music videos. It's a different song, different concept, so challenging. I was lucky in that time that I was directing music videos. I had 7 music videos become #1 trending in the world. Anyway, and this is kind of where health comes into play. So I had now become an award-winning director and had all these accomplishments and photographed all these people and all this press, and I wasn't happy. I couldn't experience any sort of happiness. And so I just kept chasing more and more accomplishments. But then I was lucky that I had a friend of mine who gave me some advice that, I needed to invest in myself in order to experience this happiness. And so there was a lot of things in my life at the time I wasn't happy with, and he had me make a list, and then we just started confronting them. One of them was I was extremely unhealthy. I had trouble walking even a block. I was drinking, sometimes 10 coffees a day to be awake and having all kinds of stuff at night to try to sleep, and it was very depressing. And so I dramatically changed my lifestyle. I ended up losing 130 pounds. I learned quite a bit about food and working out. And, originally it was to get healthy, but eventually I actually just became addicted to feeling good. Like just the idea that I could wake up and have energy for the whole day and want to move and be active, and sleep great. And those became my addictions. And the healthier I became, all of a sudden I had so much clarity with my art. I would have these huge inspirations where I would just get these incredible ideas in my head and go out and create it. And so during my health, I ended up discovering fine art photography. And for me, fine art photography was creating an image that I would want hanging in my home forever, or hanging in a museum, or hanging in an office, an art, as opposed to just a cool photo. And much like anything, if I really care, I get obsessed. So I started studying fine art photography. I started studying film photography, vintage cameras, top digital cameras, lighting. And I discovered that for me, when it comes to art that I hang up, film photography, there was a certain emotion attached to it that I didn't find in digital. So I found these beautiful vintage film cameras and learned how to use them. And I started on adventures of traveling across the United States, photographing landscapes. And I'm actually just about done with my landscape series and getting ready to have my first major fine art show and starting to work on my next series. And I get so much joy from creating fine art, and so much joy. I'm in somebody else's house right now and I'm looking at two of my photos hanging, both from Yosemite, and every time I see it, I'm transformed back to the adventure of the freezing cold Yosemite, traveling at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, having to navigate with a flashlight to find the perfect spot, to then load my film cameras and my light meter, and weeks of preparation going into the science of where the sun's going to rise, and to create this perfect picture. While I also was losing weight and working on fine art, I got into movie making, and I came up with an idea for a movie, and I wrote this script for a short film called Americana, and we went out and shot that, and which is now it's an award-winning short film, and we got press, and the people have seen it. There's been such a beautiful, welcoming excitement for the film, and so we're working on the next steps to turn it into a movie. But anyway, long story short, I finally found what my passion and dream was when I was 30, which was photography and directing and acting. And I got into photography when I was 30, changed my whole career, pursued that, and learned a lot of valuable lessons. There are just some really interesting, important tricks, not even tricks, but just truths that I hope to share on this podcast. And then later on, I got into directing. I was directing music videos and commercials and fashion films, and learned so much of that. And now that I'm getting into the movie world, oh my God, that's everything I learned from every other area, plus so much more, just goes into movie making. It's incredible what it takes to make a movie. It's interesting. I remember I was watching an interview with the head of a movie studio, and he says it takes just the same amount of effort to make a bad movie that it does to make a good movie. And so it made me really try to pay attention to the details of the script and things like that. But anyway, point is, I had a certain type of life, and like a crazy person, I abandoned all that and I went into art. And here I am, over a decade later, and now I want to not only share that knowledge with you, but share stories of mine and stories of other people in the world, at the different levels. I've already booked some exciting guests that are be coming on the podcast, but anyway, yeah. So why do I have a podcast? Because, in a world filled with information, it seems to be hard to get the right information. And so hopefully with my over a decade of trial and error, I might be able to share some gems for you and hopefully entertain you as well, because, at the end of the day, this is still a form of art. Yeah, this is the first podcast, so I guess subscribe, like, comment, share the podcast.